right. The next guy that I spoke to at Radio Row is one of my favorites. I'm sure that he is one of yours as well. He is one of the guys who is charged with protecting Joe Burrow, Teddy Karras, the center for the Cincinnati Bengals. I thought he did an excellent job in 2024 in pass blocking, and he's got a lot to say. He always gives great insight, very philosophical with some of his answers, I think. And he's just a good one to speak to about taking the temperature of the team, essentially. Obviously, the Cincinnati Bengals went on that 5-game win streak to end the season, but then the roller coaster was going up, and then it came right back down when they realized that they were not going to have an opportunity to compete in the playoffs for a second straight year. So being able to ask him about that, ask him how Joe's feeling, things like that was really great. Here's our conversation.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Deep in the Stripes with Elise Jesse.
From 31 yards, McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl. They did it. They beat Mahomes at home. Wow, Joe Burrow. No way.
The sickest Cincinnati Bengals podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Here at Radio Row. First of all, how are you feeling now that we're a few weeks postseason?
Feel good. Feel very grateful and blessed to be going into year 10. Radio Row is always bittersweet because you're not in the big game, but It's fun. I've seen a ton of people that I've played with and been around for a while now, so I know a lot of the faces. So Radio Row is always such a fun time.
And I know that it hurt you guys not to go into the playoffs this season. And you know Joe better than most of us. How is he dealing with not being able to make it into the playoffs, having such a great year, especially behind your offensive line?
I think he's handling it like the rest of us. I mean, to miss the dance 2 years in a row, is a big deal and something that we don't want to do. Obviously there was some staff changes, and I'm sure there'll be some different personnel changes. It's always different in the NFL, but I think he's doing great. We watched. I went over, and I thought the Broncos game was going to be a little bit more dramatic, but the Chiefs laid down for him. I was over at his house in the snowstorm, and he's done such a great job leading this team this year, and obviously had a career year. So I think he's doing fine.
Have you spoken to Scott Peters yet, who was just hired?
I have.
You have?
Yep. Spoken to him. I think he's great. Yeah. I'm really excited. I think. I love Frank, and that's like the sad part of this profession sometimes is personnel changes, and it's every year in this league. But I think he's going to bring in a great energy, kind of a refresh for the room, and something that I think will be really, really valuable for our program.
As a player, how do you manage that when you do have a position coach change?
There's different ways. Obviously, I need to help Coach Peters out, being the resident senior and oldest guy, but captain too. And I think we have a lot of good parts, and I think he has a great opportunity to kind of reestablish our room as a big contributor on offense.
Will you speak to the challenge and also the fun of blocking for Joe Burrow? You're one of the best pass blockers on the line for him, and he had quite the season. So I'd just love to hear from you what it's like.
It's fantastic. I mean, I think one of the deep pleasures I get from being in the NFL is seeing the ball thrown the way it is by the elite quarterbacks. I've been very lucky in my career with quarterback play with Tom and Joe. And, people always say this, different factors make to a successful QB. To me, their job is to put it right in the receiver's hands, and Tom and Joe do almost close to 100% of the time. And it's really, really fun to see, because I love, we're out here throwing footballs at Mountie. I take a lot of pride in my ball.
I noticed.
But, obviously it doesn't come close to what it looks like coming out of NFL QB's hands. But it's a lot of fun. I think we can strategize a little bit more on keeping him more upright.
Okay.
And that could be just some schematic things and just bringing up some data points. I think we're all taking a break, and then I know the coaches started, but I'm going to start to watch all the games and kind of do a reflection on 2024 and see, and I'll present the notes. Obviously, they can take it or leave it, but I'm just going to kind of present my thoughts of, how we can get to here so I'm not here on a Wednesday. We're practicing today. I want to practice today.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope you're taking a vacation before you do that. That
I
reflection.
am.
Okay,
well, I
good.
mean, we're in Florida, so it's like that's the great thing about Florida. You don't have to leave the house. It is a vacation.
Oh yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
You have a house in Florida,
Yeah.
so it's like easy for you then.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's been great.
I want to know from you also, last question for you, because I know you got to go. Myles Garrett, talking about a trade. He has been such a game wrecker in the AFC North his entire career. One of the nicest guys you'll meet outside of the field, but on the field, he is so tough to deal with. Do you hope that maybe a trade is complete maybe outside of the AFC North?
I'd love to see him in the NFC South. That'd be great. New Orleans is beautiful, Myles. Come down here. What do we play them once every 4? That'll be a good trajectory of playing Myles Garrett. But, one of the top 5 players in the league. And, that's always a tough situation. I know. I hope he's doing okay. I know that's always kind of weird putting stuff like that out there and, making a business decision. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't imagine them trading them in divisions, so I think it should be fine.
Yeah.
Unless we can take them if we want, yeah.
Hey, I would be game for that. Would you be game for that?
Always game. I'm always game to add good players, no matter who it is, yeah.
Thank you, Ted. I appreciate it. Great job.
Yeah.
You're awesome.
Look at Teddy making a case, making a plea for Myles Garrett to come to Cincinnati. Do I think that will happen? No, I do not. I don't think that the Cleveland Browns would even consider trading Myles Garrett within the division. They don't want to deal with him. They know exactly what he is. They don't want to deal with him twice a year like everybody else has to in the AFC North. Okay. So I thought something was super interesting that Teddy mentioned just before we go. We were talking about being able to keep Joe Burrow upright, and Teddy mentioned some schematic things. And I think that has to do with run blocking. The Bengals this was by November of last year. So you have a couple of months of football under your belt. And at that point, the Bengals ranked 67th in run block win rate. They just weren't great in that area. And obviously they let go of Frank Pollock in the offseason, and they are hoping that Scott Peters is able to bring a little bit more edge, maybe a different type of voice, maybe a different way of doing things to the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line. So that will be interesting. We've obviously seen already a lot of changes in the offseason, and hopefully those changes will lead to a successful start to the regular season. We will talk more about that in the next episode.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Deep in the Stripes with Elise Jesse on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.